Want to get your education game up? Ready to mix and mingle with other instructional designers and learning and development professionals? Well, in this video, we're going to talk all about how to pick the best conference for you as an instructional designer. Hi friends, my name is Vanessa Alzate, and as an instructional designer since 2009, my goal on this channel is to help aspiring instructional designers and e-learning developers just like you get off of the sidelines and get into the L&D game. And I know that conferences, well, it can be something that is confusing and you're not really sure which way to go and what to pick. And frankly, it could even be confusing for someone like me that's been in the industry since 2009. So in this video, we're going to break down the questions that I have to ask myself whenever I look at conferences or kind of pick out what conferences I do want to attend. So I know you've heard about all the big conferences, right? The ATD conferences, the Learning Guild conferences, DevLearn, all the things, right? And it's hard to know which ones you have to be at and which ones are going to be a good return on your investment, especially conferences where you have to travel to them, the ticket is higher priced. And as someone that's just starting out in the field, or even someone like me, I can't just shell out thousands and thousands of dollars on my own dime in order to attend these events. And I also know that if you are getting your company to sponsor you to attend the event, you have to build up a good case as to why you're going there, the return on the investment, and, learn more about what you're going to be doing at that conference. And so there are some questions that when I think about, when I kind of plan out if the conference is something that I want to attend, or when I think about at the beginning of the year, what are the conferences that I do know I want to attend, I have to ask myself a few questions and really think about what my goals are. And so that's what we're going to work through today is what are those questions and how can you map out which are the best conferences for you. And the cool thing about the pandemic, which there isn't really a cool thing about the pandemic, but you know what I mean here. The cool thing about the pandemic is that there are so many opportunities for free and virtual summits and conferences, or conferences that were traditionally held in person are being held at such a reduced cost because they don't have to worry about the overhead of a big convention center or anything like that. So they are definitely more accessible, even though I still think a lot of them are still pretty expensive for new instructional designers. Well, for most people, I should say. I don't want to just single out new instructional designers, but you know what I mean here. And so it can still be a lot. So that's the really cool thing is that so many people are putting together conferences that are, that wouldn't have normally put out a conference before, right? We wouldn't, for example, right? I'm putting on a conference this September 9th and 10th, the Anchored Learning Virtual Summit. Link down below to register. Please join us. But someone like me, I wouldn't have put together necessarily an in-person conference, at least in this stage of my career, because there is so much overhead and there is so many things to consider and logistics and just event planning alone and just trying to get the catering order right, to be honest, because homegirl likes to eat. And so just things like that I wouldn't have done, but because I'm able to host it virtually, it's so much more accessible and I'm able to bring ideas and topics and themes to people, to practitioners that you don't necessarily get at all the larger conferences that typically target more of more professionals that are, in big corporations and in-house professionals. And so it's definitely a different vibe. So it definitely adds a new layer to deciding which conferences that you want to be at. But I did want to just address that first and foremost. So here are a couple of things I'm going to want you to think about. What are you looking to upskill in? So you know me, I love a vision board. I love goals. I love really setting my intentions and where I want to go in my career and, for the year and this and that. So at the beginning of the year, you should be thinking about what is it that you want to improve upon? Or at any point in the year, think about what are some skills and stuff that you want to improve upon, and then look at what conferences really cater to that. If you want to build up your tech skills, then you want to attend showcases or you want to attend conferences or summits that are more tech focused as opposed to theory and, learning strategy focused. So really want to think about things like that. I want you to ask yourself, what problem are you trying to solve, right? If you are someone that is a practitioner within a larger company or within an organization, really think about what problem are you trying to solve at your organization and go to those conferences. If you're someone that works with new hires and onboarding, well, then you want to have conferences that are going to talk about culture building, onboarding, mentor programs, things like that, to bring those ideas back to your organization and see how they can apply at your organization, because not all programs are one size fits all, and you always have to tweak things to work best with your organization. Another thing that you need to ask yourself is, would you do best in a large or small conference? And I will tell you, do not sleep on these small conferences. These larger conferences, you feel like you can get, and I've been to large conferences, right? You kind of feel like you can get swept up or swallowed up by all the people and, these just large general sessions that are like hundreds and hundreds of people, and that can be intimidating. And in these smaller conferences, you see the same people over and over again, and you're able to, really make more meaningful connections because you're in smaller workspaces. And so I think that you really should look into some of these smaller conferences and see how they fit into not only your budget, but into your goals, and if you would thrive better at these smaller conferences. I think that there's a lot to be said about smaller conferences, and I actually spoke with a sponsor after I sponsored the ATD Government Workforce Conference this year, which was a really great experience. But I talked to one of the sponsors after the fact, and he was mentioning that they typically go to the smaller conferences because they're able to make more meaningful connections at those smaller conferences, as opposed to larger conferences where there's so many people that you're just trying to meet as many people as you can, so you don't really connect as much with others. So it's definitely something to think about. The next thing you want to think about, especially as we're trying to return to normal, is virtual versus in-person. Conferences for a very long time were super inaccessible because you had to travel to get there. And when you are, caring for loved ones, or you just have to fund it yourself and all of these things, or you don't like to travel, you don't feel comfortable traveling, whatever the case may be, especially traveling solo, it doesn't make in-person conferences accessible or great for you. So the ability to have now these virtual conferences really make conferences more accessible, conferences that are all over the world. I spoke at a conference for a group out in India. I would have never done that before, but it's a long flight, it's a long ways away, and it'd be very expensive to get me out there. But because I was able to do it from the comfort of North Brunswick, New Jersey, I was able to be there. It was super early, I think 4:30 in the morning. But I was able to attend that conference and connect with people I normally wouldn't have. So definitely look at virtual. I will say though, and I recognize that I am having a virtual summit, but I am doing that because of where I'm at in my career and for accessibility purposes. Okay. I multitask. Here's the thing. When I'm at a conference, my external monitor has the conference going, and then I'm usually doing something else, or I'm watching and then my email notification will pop up, or I'm checking this or that. So I do notice that my attentiveness is different in an in-person conference. So I really, if I'm going to a virtual conference, I really need to be 1,000% bought into the topics and what's being talked about in order for me to really block the time, make the commitment to attend. And it has been easy for me to book a virtual conference and then not attend because a client wants something or someone else wants something. I'm not valuing the professional development, and I really need to set that boundary because I need to value professional development more for myself and my time, really, and not let clients just book whenever they want. Different topic, different day, but give this video a thumbs up if you do want to talk more about boundaries with clients. Anyway, so it is easier for me to skip out on them or multitask during them. So in person, I am more focused, that is where my mind is, and my whole mind is participating in this conference. So it's definitely something that you want to think about is, can you really block your time out? Can you really just focus on that conference?
Squirrel!
And just be totally present. And if you can't with a virtual conference, then you're going to want to look at in-person opportunities. It doesn't mean that you have to go to these huge conferences. There are small conferences in person all around you. You just have to look a little bit harder to find them. The next thing you want to look at is who's speaking, who's attending, like what are, the typical, attendee demographics and things like that. Because if you're going to a conference that really is targeting, more managers or, like executives, and you're a practitioner, you may not find all of the things that you are looking for. So you want to really look at like the demographics. Who is speaking? What are they speaking about? And are these topics things that you are interested in? Are these topics that you can actually take and then apply? And I don't want you to be super strict on that. I want you to definitely be flexible and open-minded, because you will go to sessions that you're like, I don't even know how I'm going to apply this. And then you're like, oh crap, this is awesome, and I can definitely take this to the workplace. So don't be totally closed-minded, but also just think about, who's speaking, what you want to take out of it. Another thing you want to look at is the schedule and the kinds of opportunities you have to connect with others. I will say in-person conferences, they're really for networking. They're really for meeting others in the field and for meeting, other practitioners, meeting with sponsors and different, companies with different tools and things like that. And just making those connections. So many amazing connections get made at conferences. And it really is an opportunity to also meet some friends that you maybe have made on LinkedIn or on Instagram. So if you happen to be at ATD ICE in Salt Lake City this September, I guess it's the end of August, beginning of September, make sure you come to the Anchor Training booth in the Expo Hall. I'll be roaming around. Come meet me. Let's be friends. Big news and announcement at my booth. We are going to be creating TikTok and Instagram Reels, and we're really, really excited to be having some fun and taking, learning and development and taking a completely different, new, fun, fresh, modern twist on it. So I want to see you there. We will be doing fun TikToks, fun Reels, nothing too crazy, nothing too complicated. You don't have to ask. Just come and have fun, and let's talk about how TikTok and Instagram Reels really can teach us a lot about learning and development. And then the last question I really want you to ask yourself, and this is the big question and the most obvious, is what's your budget? And really think about truly what your budget is, right? You have to invest in yourself. And sometimes those investments come with finances. I mean, it's a financial investment. So it can be harder, and totally understand it can be harder to set aside funds. But that's what your vision board is for, right? That is what your goals are for. If your goal, and you see that DevLearn is like the conference that you want to be at, but you just can't afford it right now, no problem. Work towards it. You will get to DevLearn. You will get to ATD ICE. You will get to ATD Core 4. Whatever the large conference is that you want to be at, Learning 2021, anything, you will be there. You can get there. Just don't put in your mind that it's not achievable because you can't afford it. Just put that to the side. Maybe this is not the year for you, but it is a goal that you can strive for. You can take, and save a little bit here and there. Instead of going for your $10 latte, take that money and put it into a piggy bank, for like a better phrase, or a jar, your DevLearn jar or something like that. Make the commitment to be there. Maybe it's not that year, but definitely in the future. And if you just keep chipping away, you will eventually have the money that you need in order to attend that conference and go to that conference and realize that dream. So definitely be real with yourself about your budget and know that, okay, maybe this year isn't the year, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be your year in the future. And just be aware that when you go to in-person conferences, it's not just the cost of the conference, right? It's the cost of your flight, your hotel, the Uber from the airport to the hotel, the conference center. It is your meals. Like there's all these other costs. And some of these conferences have like networking nights that come at an additional price. So just be aware that there are all these costs that you have to budget for when you go to identify if it's within your budget, or if you go to your boss to pitch them on you attending a conference. So just be aware of the entire budget, and it's not just the ticket to get in. Okay, friends, so those are my questions to help you decide which conferences are for you. I am going to be posting an Instagram post about which conferences I love as an instructional designer. So make sure you check out the @Vanessa_Anchored Instagram account for more information about the conferences that I love. Friends, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.